Hi there, here's another video, and this talk is going to be about my unexpected spiritual awakening, which started happening under 10 years ago. And I just want to say, I don't talk about this much, and today I've started to really talk about it. I think because I think the awakening in general, it was although an amazing experience, it was very traumatic. I personally believe that I went through, I'll admit it, I think that I suffered a nervous breakdown during it, because it was such a massive experience. And how it happened is, it happened in a way that many people awaken. If you do your research on spiritual awakening, you find that a lot of people that do wake up do it through drugs. And this is how it happened for me. And what was going on is, days would go by, and this drug I took, I'm not going to say what it was, I'm not going to say if it was legal or illegal, but basically after days go by, it's still there, and the energy's stronger. And weeks go by, months. I mean, it's still going on now. This is this 10 years. And basically, this is how it was such a shock to the system, this awakening, because I didn't have any idea it was going to happen when it happened. And it happened in a moment when you're on drugs, or you've coming down off drugs or whatever. And then you start going on this, you start going through this awakening, which I didn't even know at the time what a spiritual awakening was. I believe that Syd Barrett from Pink Floyd might have had a spiritual awakening as well, because he was getting involved in psychedelics, and he started to not be interested in the band anymore. And they say that he was the genius. And I believe it's not him that's a genius, but it's the spiritual power he's accessing. But this is a very common way of awakening. Now, some people might not believe you if you mention drugs, but I'm going to mention this because I'm being honest. But obviously, weeks went by, no drugs, months, no drugs, and this experience is still going on. And but the difference is also with spiritual energy, is that a drug locks you into one frequency. Like, say you take ecstasy or any drug, it locks you into a frequency. When you're dealing with the energy, the big difference is, the energy is on a different level to the drug. It's far more intense, because it's like you're dealing, when you're dealing with energy is limitless and infinite, right? But what a drug is limited, and that's the difference. And like I say, I don't talk about this a lot in my talks about my awakening, because when I talk about this awakening that has been going on for under 10 years, it's very personal. It's not something that I'm making up. It's not something that is, it's easy for me to talk to, but I'm also uncomfortable a little bit also, because it's personal. But I talk about it because I've been going through this, and I know why I've been going through it. The whole planet is going through a global awakening. And I also want to say that everyone on the planet is going through a spiritual awakening. People perceive that someone that's had a big awakening is having an awakening, and they're not having an awakening. That's what they perceive, but it isn't true. The fact of the matter is that you're all awakening. Everything we go through is learning and growing us, and that's what ascension is. That's what awakening is. But when we're unconscious, we are not conscious, then we don't realize that. The awakening that people mostly think of in the spiritual community is that experience where you're now aware of the awakening. But how do you become aware? Well, you become aware simply by being aware of it, by paying attention. Because what happened to me was, I sat down one day and had enough. And, you know, I mentioned the drugs earlier, but, you know, I had enough, not of the drugs, but I suffered from a lot of depression. And, you know, and that's the thing. And so I sat down one day and thought, right, I want things to change. And it was such a powerful thing. And this inward force starts coming through. And like I say, you know, even though that before that, maybe a few days before that experience, I you know, was coming off drugs, there's no way that it could be anything from the drug, because like I say, most drugs wear off after 24 hours. And this was days, weeks, months, and years now as well, and still going on. So for anyone thinking that. But the other thing about drugs is that they expand your awareness. You know, like in India, you can go to the chemist, and they have a different perception of drugs in India. The perception that Britain has is a different perception, because it's programmed. It's a programmed perception. Yet you can go to the shop and buy alcohol, and that is perfectly normal, and start a fight with someone, and that's normal behaviour. Yet people in love on ecstasy is seen as, they're bad, they're crazy. And it's a programmed perception. And like I say, when I was about 17, I used to go out to nightclubs and stuff, and in the party scene, and you know, and on these kind of chemicals, I'm not going to say what they are, but people are at oneness with each other. But that's illegal to do that, you see, if it's an illegal drug. And I'm not saying I took illegal drugs or legal drugs, but I'm just going to say that this feeling of oneness is actually the closest representation of what we are. And there's nothing wrong with it. You know, right and wrong are made up by somebody. That's the thing. Everything comes from the top. The top bans this drug and doesn't ban the other thing because it has an agenda. You know, I knew people that were druggies and alcoholics, and I'll tell you right now, alcohol doesn't just kill you, it destroys you, destroys people, destroys them, you know, in so many ways, like nothing you've ever seen. And it's legal, that's, you know, because the system wants that, it wants you being messed up. But back to my awakening, my spiritual awakening, yeah, it was an unexpected experience. And I didn't always do it, but I took something a few days before the awakening, and then a few days after, I remember sitting down. It was nothing to do with the drug I took; it was to do with me personally, and I was sick of the depression I was going through, and I sat down and had enough. And this energy, very similar to the powerful chemical I was taking, but this was have happened. Well, ever since then, it's been happening. Ever since, you know, days went by, weeks went by, and I started to freak out because I didn't know what was going on. And then it starts dawning on me after weeks of it that it's a spiritual experience. I didn't know what it was called, a spiritual awakening. And my mum at the time said, "You're going through a spiritual experience," because my mum's a psychic herself, and I've been going through it ever since. You know, so I just wanted to do a video on that, and I'll probably start talking more about this. I don't think I've probably spoke about that, you know, the drug that I took before the awakening, because it's probably a thing I was scared to talk about. Probably because I know people are going to judge your awakening on that, but at the same time, I want to be honest. And I know that by being honest and by being the authentic self, people can see me, the real me. And I'd rather be judged on that than not telling exactly how it is. But obviously, but this is a very common. Many people awaken through drugs. Very common. I'm not against any drug. I think people should be allowed to put whatever they want inside their body. I think what I mean. If they want to kill themselves, let them kill themselves. It's up to them. I think we should all be sovereign, in law, by law, to do what we want. I believe in freedom. I don't believe in being controlled by a system. But yeah, and this was my awakening. But like I say, this is what happens because certain chemicals can expand you. The new road for drugs is actually coming in the future. Is actually the things I take a lot of supplements. I take vitamins. And as I found out more about supplements, there's actually these supplements now, and they're mixing them together, and the drugs that people take, or for medicine, or the medicine is changing into more complementary, alternative healing medicine. That's what's happening, and I've been getting into these different things lately, and all started off. I had a cold in about February time. I thought it was COVID-19. It was a really bad cold for about over a month, and I started taking vitamin D tablets, and then I started to buy other things, and great things. This, and it helps the body to thrive. That's the thing. I'm really learning about the body more now, because I'm thinking, if I'm going to go through this awakening, remember, I want to last as long as possible. So I want to try and make my body go as long as possible. So that's why this is so important, the vitamins, the supplements. But that's what they're doing now. In drugs, they're actually got these new drugs now. I don't know what they're called, but they're smart drugs. And they mix, it basically supplements mixed together. And a lot of people are talking about it as well. And I'll probably talk about it more and more. And there's so many of them always being created, and a lot better for you than a lot of it. Because in the pharmaceutical industry before, it was all things that weren't good for you, like chemicals, dirty chemicals that aren't really good for your body. And what they're doing now is they're actually really looking into vitamins and getting that into supplements, and really blending good mixtures to help the body to thrive. Because remember, you're not a body inside a spirit. You're a spirit inside a body. And like I say, this is so important, like on the spiritual path also. Very, very important, because it's part of you, and it actually enhances your body. And when you enhance your body, you feel better. It's like women that suffer from postpartum depression. A lot of it is actually medical, not psychological. It's something else I look up as well, and they're just low on vitamins and supplements. But this thing is misperceived as psychological, when a lot of the time it might not be that. And this is important. And this is obviously something I'm meant to get into. But back to my spiritual awakening, yeah, that's on my spiritual awakening manifested through drugs. And I wasn't on drugs at the time. I'd came down from drugs, but I just wanted to say that today, because I've never said it before. Very hard for me, that, and I'm glad I did it, and I'll talk about it more and more, because I want to be as open as I can. I want to be as authentic. That's the authentic self coming through. Just wanted to share that, because, like I say, this when I talk about my awakening, it's very traumatic experience, and what I'm doing, it's very healing for me to go back and to talk about it. And it might help anyone else that's going through a spiritual awakening. And I think I'm just going to end it there. And if you're watching, you're meant to watch it. Everything falls in divine order and divine timing. Thank you for